Today, I published a review of Cowards, the new album from UK post-punk outfit Squid, a band who debuted just a few years ago in a wave of really exciting British post-punk that included Black Country New Road and Fontaine's DC and Shame and Black Midi back here as well, and their debut album was great, but in my opinion, they experienced a bit of a sophomore slump with a follow-up record that I was not nearly as engaged with the content of the music, but also just not as inventive, creative, and unique as their debut album. I still think it's a fine listen and worth hearing, but I was going into Cowards hoping for Squid to really knock my socks off again. And I had a pretty good feeling about this record going into it based on the first two singles, particularly the spectacular lead single, Crispy Skin. While I wasn't a fan of the third single, in my opinion, it's the weakest song on the record, and the deep cuts here tend to deliver pretty consistently. There are a handful of tracks that remind me a lot of the band's debut album with their wandering compositions and shift between punk ferocity and a more gentle and intimate style, but there are also some really interesting changes of pace, things that the band have never quite done before, a use of strings that feels incredibly eye-opening for their sound, and even a glitchy breakdown right in the center of one of my favorite deep cuts the record has to offer. I do think the project is a little bit imbalanced. It gets off to a really good start and has a pretty strong finale. Most of the duds, most of the lulls happen on the midpoint of the record, which is a little bit unfortunate as a listening experience. But for the most part, what I'm happy with about this record is that it reminds me why Squid are so interesting. The creative potential and high ceiling that they have pops up several times here, and a few of these songs are now among my favorites in the band's entire catalog. So I think it's a bounce back record. In my opinion, it's definitely an improvement from their sophomore record and kind of in line with what I was hoping to hear from the band coming off their fiery debut. If you've heard the album or like Squid or like any kind of post-punk, tell me in the comments what you thought about it and what you think about them as relative to their existing peers from just a few years ago following Isaac Wood's departure from Black Country New Road and the Black Midi breakup. And if you want to read my full thoughts on the entire album, you can check out my review right up here on my blog. Mwah.